recording, just let me know. Recording has magically started by somebody else. Thank you very much. And I think that's it. So, and Hannah Davies is here. Excellent. The gang is all here. So, as I said, the Slido, feel free to use that. And we've got a bit of feedback. So 11 people have said they are either interested or hot. So that's a good start. That some people are interested. You're in the right place. And that was the word cloud from last time. So excited was the kind of the biggest word, and also interested. So we're doing okay, I think. And then I just wanted to just a quick kind of roll call. I've just changed that question. So there now should be a which local care partnership are you from? And there we go. Armley, Bramley, Middleton and Wortley. Whoa, currently in the lead. Excellent. So 10, 11 people have found Slido, 13, which is really good. So that's excellent. So keep adding some stuff into there. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. So that's a little bit of a roll call. And in a second, I will change, I'll stop that poll and just place a little placeholder there. So if you want in a few minutes to go back into Slido, and if you've got any questions, we'll leave that up there. And if you see a question that someone else has posted, it's all anonymous. If you want to kind of like it in a bit of a Facebook style, the more likes that a question gets, it moves to the top of the list. And then, we can at later date, later on in the session, we can come back and answer those questions. So that'll be there in a minute for you. So first of all, we heard from a lady called Joyce at the beginning of workshop 1. And this is really just to anchor the whole population health management program with people and people, personalized care. So there's actually a second video that we can now show about Joyce. So sit back. It's a couple of minutes long. If I can get my tech sorted. Where's my right window? Got a lot of windows going on here. So hopefully this will be okay. Share my screen. Remember to include the sound. Okay, here we go.
Doctors, nurses, matrons, specialists, my carers that come in twice a day, mainly shower and everything else. They not only talk to me and care for me, but I can have a laugh. And some of the things they ask me, which I feel are very important, they feel that they can ask me questions as a mother figure. And I love that because it does wonders for me. Yeah, I have. I've had support, which I think is very important. I've had explanation of various treatment that they've had been involved in, like stitches taken out of my face after having cancer removed. The nurses that came with the matron, they were very good. They were, how can I put it? They were just, some of them anxious because they were learning different ways of doing things, but the confidence that they gave me was exceptional. Well, Edgar's taken poorly, and he was actually dying. We phoned my son phoned the doctor, and they took him straight in. And his heart was not good, and it still isn't. His general health, his bruising on his arms, his appetite, you name it, it was just heartbreaking to see him go down. When Edgar had his cellulitis, the team from Woodsley Road, they came out every day and dressed his legs every day, and sometimes they'd come twice a day. Matron's exceptionally good. She does, and the doctors that probably the doctor I'll see today will go back and they'll discuss the situation. If I need tablets, they automatically do it, and they phone up to the chemist up here. Definitely listen to, definitely very supportive when I've been down, depressed, and they've always told me that they're only at the other end of the telephone, and I found that a great comfort. Medical staff using, if you like, language and words that the patient doesn't know, hasn't got a clue what they mean, and I really feel that that's something that should be worked on. If they put it down in simple language for everybody and use words that they can understand, then I think that would make life much, much easier. That they would stick to the times. They shouldn't be ridiculous times like 6 o'clock in the morning, up, you know, unless you're going somewhere and they're willing to do it. But the rotas are changed so often. Extra calls are put on the carers. So by the time they come to us, it could be an hour, up to an hour late. I get cross. And I have to sometimes have to put a brave face on it and say, looky here now. And although I'm very annoyed, especially when they're down to come at 8:30 and it's then 9 o'clock. And I'm just having, because I've got to eat regularly, they're coming at 9 o'clock. Well, I've got to get washed and changed for bed.
Okay. So if I stop presenting that. Okay, so hopefully in there you can hearing from Joyce. Hopefully that will be echoed in some of the feedback that we're going to hear now. So I'm going to hand over to Kim, who is going to hopefully lead a short session on the feedback from the homework sessions that you guys have been involved with. So Kim, are you there?
I am here, Graham.
Excellent.
Turn my camera back on. My reception was falling over with my camera on before, but hopefully you can all see and hear me. So yeah, I mean, some of that was a tough listen from Joyce, really. I think it maybe wasn't stuff that we haven't heard already, but I think it's a reminder of why we're doing what we're doing with local care partnerships, that we recognise that our system at times is far from perfect, and that actually we do all want to do a really great job for the people of Leeds here and for the people of our local communities, and are looking at, well, how do we do that and how do we work together to make that happen? So your homework from last time was to talk to the local people within your local care partnership area, and particularly older people. So last session, last workshop 1, we looked at what it means to age well, and we looked at the model in Leeds, how we'd got to that idea, and some of that was very much by talking to older people and understanding what it meant to them to age well. But we'd kind of put that back to you and said, in the weeks between workshop 1 and workshop 2, try and talk to some of the people that you're working with in your services, that are in your local area, and just ask some of those questions around what it's important to them.
Okay, that's great. Abs, thank you very much. Yeah, that's very kind. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome, John.
John,
Just
yeah.
getting stuck into our feedback, John. Yeah, so we wanted to know what does it mean to age well? What does healthy look like as you get older? And also what are the things that maybe not so good about that? What would you like to improve about that? And is that particular to their area? Is it things that are common to everybody? So what we'd like to do at the start of each of the workshops going forward is get that bit of feedback from each of you as local care partnerships on what you have been doing in those intervening weeks. And so today's, we're hopefully going to hear a little bit of feedback from each of the local care partnerships of, you might want to say how you went about those conversations, whether you used a survey, whether you went and joined some of the virtual coffee mornings and things that are going on in your area, whether you just chatted to the people that you came across in your day-to-day jobs, but also very much those key themes that were coming out in your area. And hopefully what we'll start to see is, well, what was common to each of the local care partnerships? What was something that matters a lot to people right across the piece? And are there some things that seem very particular to the area that you live in? So I'm going to invite each local care partnership in turn to comment. I'm going to run through now. Hopefully you have each identified somebody that will do the feedback for your local care partnership, and hopefully the technology has worked for them and they are part of the meeting today. But the order that I'm going to go in, I'm going to go with Otley and Airborough first, but so that other people can start to prepare, I'm coming to Wetherby next, then Armley, then Morley, and then we're going to finish with Crossgate. So Neil, do you have a nominee from Otley and Airborough to do some feedback on your behalf?
Yeah, I think well, we agreed that that I would feedback on behalf of the team. So yeah, so there was basically just in terms of the approach. Some partners had sent out the survey via links to some of their residents. So that was specifically Sue from Wharfdale View had sent the I'd sent a link to the survey with a little bit of commentary about why we were doing this and what we were doing it for, and hopefully what it was going to inform. And then we had some other partners in the room in our group that had just picked up conversations with people across their kind of day-to-day work, really. So we had a chat last week about some of the themes that were starting to emerge, and we are hopefully going to kind of add to that this week, but it doesn't look like there's been too many more additions. So what we have in terms of identifying what's important to people, one of the strong things to come across was kind of feeling safe and feeling secure, and I suppose you can think quite deeply about what that means, really, about whether that is yeah, what contributes to people feeling safe and secure, really? Is it those social networks? Is it I don't know, is it antisocial behavior? Is it crime? What is it about kind of feeling safe? Is it those kind of, as I mentioned before, those support networks around people? One of the other themes to come out was in terms of aging well, was being able to stay active. And again, you can spend a lot of time kind of unpicking what it means to being able to stay active. What exactly does that mean? Is it people's motivation? Is it people's opportunities? Is it people's accessibility to things? And also placed an importance on the health service, and specifically for the people that we had spoken to, have mentioned about access to GP services. So that was one of the things that had come out in terms of importance. In terms of what support could be offered, then there was kind of a general theme around kind of a good and kind of effective health service, but also quite interestingly for the respondents of our survey, there was a few different mentions for Otley Action. And just understanding the importance of Otley Action. There was comments around just kind of that being the kind of social opportunity, but also there was a specific mention around an episode of care that was received, and then kind of that next layer of by the service, by a hospital, and then after admission, how important it was to be involved with Otley Action again. I don't know what the aspect of kind of help and support from Otley Action was, but there was specific mention, so I'd just like to kind of fly the flag for those there. In terms of what's good about Otley and Airborough, there was mentions around amenities being accessible, the kind of those local amenities being accessible, and also the scenery and the green space was really important to people. In terms of what could be done better, what could be improved in their local area, people mentioned around social disruption was mentioned once, not many times, but social disruption was mentioned once. The traffic was a main was a main kind of a main source of feedback, really, around what could be better in their area. And also someone mentioned about appearance, so just in terms of appearance of the kind of the green space and some of the grass verges and some of the flower arrangements and what have you. So that's essentially what we have, just to kick us off.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Neil. Is there anybody else from Otley and Airborough that wants to add anything? No. Okay. If you think of anything else that you want, Councillor Latty, were you trying to come in?
Yeah. Am I mute, or can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Yes, I think that Neil's covered just about everything. He failed to mention AVSED, by the way. He mentioned Otley Action, but AVSED is even more important to, at least at this end. But one thing I think that we have in Airborough is this feeling of community. You know, it exists. It's a place that people belong to and they feel rooted in. And I think that, as an awful lot of people have been here an awful long time, and that's one of the things which is helping people to age well in this part of the world. But you know, the community bit is most important, because that has within it the historical ties. We've got strong historical society, we've got strong civic society, nearly all run by older people, by the way. Younger people are too busy working, so they can't get in to do that. But that the things that we do as a community in Airborough make living and aging, make it a super place to be. And so I think that that's why we've got a relatively healthy bunch in Airborough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Latty. I think, yeah, a really key kind of reflection there of just that importance of that feeling of community and really strong community. Neil?
Kim, can I just mention quickly, just to kind of corroborate what Councillor Latty's just said there, is that was a strong kind of finding from the local Big Leads chat that we done in Otley and Airborough last year, was around that sense of community, and that was one of the strong themes that came out of that.
Great, thank you. I'm going to move us on to Wetherby now. Alison, do we have somebody from Wetherby to give some feedback?
Hi, Kim. Yes, Martin Lee from Active Leads kindly volunteered to give the feedback for Wetherby.
Brilliant, thank you. We shall hand over to you now then, Martin.
Morning, everyone. I love the way you say volunteered there, Alison. Yeah, okay, we'll crack on then. Very similar. How we've gone about this particular task is similar to what Neil's done over in the Otley and Airborough area. We used the survey. My team have contacted people directly, to be fair, to ask them around the different questions, and then people have had conversations in the local community with service users and people who they've obviously been in contact with. So for us, what's important as you get older, access to services has come out hugely. That's something that everyone's really, really bothered about, and there's definitely some concerns over that. Health independence and mobility are the real important things, what people want to do, obviously, in that particular area. With regarding help to achieve that, interest in these, bus services and rail links has come up repeatedly. So transport in general around the Wetherby area is something that's I think is a concern of people, and again, improvements in those areas will make access to services a bit better. Keeping the facilities open in the area. So there is comments about how good the facilities are in the Wetherby area, and I think people are aware that keeping those open is something that will help them achieve what they want for their health. And then this next one, and this is really interesting, I think, is a good broadband service. There was definitely comments around how people have moved towards digital, and about how their broadband and good broadband really helps them access different services and different opportunities to be healthy. Okay. What's good about the area? Contained community. People like the sense of community. Again, that came out very strong. Semi-rural. People like the idea of just being on the doorstep of things like they've got really good walks in that area, cycling. So again, that whole idea of the outside, active outside and things has come outdoor stuff has really come through. And then an ideal location to live for local services, especially when you're commuting to places like Leeds, York has come up, and Harrogate. What will make things better? Funny enough, better transport links, buses and rail. More GP surgeries came out. Again, I don't know exactly how that would work or anything, but they're certainly saying that having more GP surgeries would help. Maintaining local services is something that's come up very strongly as well. So again, I think some people are bothered because of COVID that things will shut and they're going to have to travel further, and actually having local services really makes a difference. And then two areas, one is around building less houses. I think there's a really strong feeling around Wetherby that they're building far too many houses, and there isn't enough services being built for the people that are obviously buying those houses. And then around older people, supported living and access to supported living is something that's come up quite strongly. So that's that's what we've got back really from Wetherby.
Brilliant, thank you, Martin. Is there anybody else from Wetherby that wants to add anything in here? Okay, just giving people a chance to unmute their mics to see if there's anybody who wanted to jump in. So yeah, I think really interesting there. There's some kind of definite overlapping themes with Otley and Airborough, and that kind of strong sense of community and place, and wanting to make sure that that isn't lost as well, that is something that we managed to maintain in that area. But some very strong themes that have maybe popped up a bit more strongly in Wetherby, particularly the things like the transport links, the rapid expansion of the area, and I think a real interesting mix there of things that are very specific to health and health services, and those things that are much more about wider well-being and that whole experience of being an older person in the area. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to come to Armley next. And Pablo, is it you that's giving feedback? I was told it was. Hopefully I'm on the right track.
Yes, I'm one of the 2 volunteers for our, I'm just trying to share our survey and comments. So you have here, this first slide, hopefully. So the survey, it was divided in 4 themes. The first one, what is important, and obviously is independence and quality of life in a way of ability to do things, having a good health, and staying at home with access to family, friends, and social life. To do that, the support needed is to understand what is available in the community, to have access to services when needed, like the GP, or the services to come to the person when it's not possible to go out, and then people to check how things are going. But sometimes I even mention support to walk the dogs. But yes, I said having knowledge about what's happening. What is good about our area? The sense is that it's a good community, friendly, helping each other. They feel that the support from general practice is good. There is good parks around and good places to visit. But then as well, what could be better, it was about having less crime, more shops, more groceries, improve public transport, and even more spaces and places to meet and go. Finally, we had, with the help of Armley Helping Hands, a couple of guests that provided a bit of input, more personalized. And obviously with the pandemic, there's a bit of anxiety about new ways of living. There had been a loss of confidence because of the need of shieldings. There's a certain degree of loss of independence. And the question is, in the future, how things are going to be. The concern regarding access to digital, as it seems to be more and more promoted, that there's a risk that it could trigger inequality because of affordability and access to equipment could not be there. I don't know, Donnie, you want to add anything?
Yes, so in line with the work we're doing with the WAVE, we've actually just finished a community consultation with all the people we've been dealing with through the shielding, and we think this works parallel with the work, and one of the highest things that comes out is around mental health, loss of confidence, and how they will be able to implement some form of independence after shielding. There's quite a lot of anxiety about how they're going to access services, etc. Around GPs and medical care, we've particularly got a concern, especially around the flu vaccines. There's a mixture of information and knowledge, and quite a lot of older people have still got the anxiety about accessing medical care because they've got a fear that if they do require some medical attention or hospitalisation, they won't have the support mechanisms from family. And that's concerning because we know we encourage them in preventative services and accessing care, and we feel that, you know, they could actually deteriorate a lot more rapidly. There was also the barriers around digital inclusion, and particularly our older generation. This is highlighted some of the barriers to them. They've not been able to access information and services, and as more and more services become digital, it is going to make them isolated And this is a concern again because it's around mixture of information, and we need to get a clear directive to our older people about what pathways. So how we prescribe our information in the community is essential.
Brilliant, thanks both of you. That was a really good overview. Is there anybody else wants to add anything from Armley? So tons of things there. Again, we're starting to, I think, to build a picture of some things that are definitely kind of resonating right across the city in terms of what's important to people. Good to see things like parks start to come up as well, much more about the environment and the types of things within the environment that are important to people, but reflecting on the other side of that as well, of that kind of fear of crime sometimes, and particularly people feeling like they maybe are not feeling confident to go out at night. I think really interesting, we didn't specifically ask you to talk to people about how it's feeling right now and the COVID experience, but a lot of the feedback that you've given at the end there really resonates with some of the stuff we've picked up in local care partnership meetings right across the piece. And I think I can see Hannah nodding that Healthwatch have been having conversations with people too, that, you know, some of these things around loss of confidence and not feeling confident about going out again, but also the digital inclusion or exclusion agenda being a really huge one for older people, that we've moved quite rapidly because we've had to digital ways, but we've seen some real advantages to having digital as part of our offer, but at the same time seen that that does really exclude some people. We do have some great things in this city that can help with digital inclusion, but again, the demand is so much at the moment that it's really trying to get those solutions in to the people that need them most. So lots of interesting stuff there for you guys to build on as part of your population health management journey, I think. We're going to move to Morley now, and Claire has kindly volunteered to do the feedback for us from Morley. So Claire, would you like to come in now?
Hi everybody. So yeah, we used the survey as well. We had our partners just talk to our residents really, just to get some feedback from them. What they came up with is what's important as you get older. So family seemed to come out on top, followed by independence. So we kind of thinking that's to do with mobility, health, keeping fit, that sort of thing. What else? Yeah, and living a healthy lifestyle, that came out. So we kind of thinking that what's important to them is being mobile in the area and being able to keep fit. Okay, support to help them. Quite a lot of people said they didn't really want any support, that they felt they had enough with their friends and family. But again, as mentioned in other areas, more able to get a GP appointment was definitely mentioned, and access to the sports centre as well. So yeah, what's good about living in Morley? The community spirit was a really key point there, and the good shopping centre as well. So we've got the market in Morley, which everybody seems to like. They'll also like the open spaces that we've got as well. But then what could be better was more planting, perhaps more flowers, more trees, that sort of thing. And amenities and travel that's come up as well in Morley, more access to travel. So I think that's it.
Brilliant, thank you, Claire. That was a really great overview. So to give a bit of background, we just managed to get together yesterday for our feedback and had quite a lot of responses from different partners. So Claire's managed to put that one together for us really quickly. I've just seen on the chat that Martin also wants to add some stuff in about the access to leisure in Morley. So do you want to come in?
Yeah, just the leisure centre has reopened even for swimming over the last couple of days. I think, again, if people just want outside of this meeting to talk about access to leisure centres and physical activity and stuff, I'm quite happy to pick that up with Morley LCP.
Brilliant. That sounds like a great offer. I'm sure that we will be in touch with you on that as we move forward with our population health management work as well, and just thinking in general about the population there. So yeah, thanks to you both. Again, community really strong, and I think that, you know, what really sprang out about Morley was just the amount of people that, when asked about what was important about aging and being healthy and stuff, that feeling of having friends and family, having those connections around you, and that ability to be independent, to be able to make use of those local facilities and be able to access things on that very local footprint. And then I think the other one that popped up as well was not just that kind of ability to get a GP appointment, but that if you have got health conditions, having a good relationship with your GP. That was something that really came through on some of the feedback from Morley as well, which I think was a really interesting one. So we're going to move now to our final one, which is Crossgates. So Kate, do we have somebody from Crossgates to volunteer the feedback?
Yes, Harpal.
Hi. Hi. See if I can try and share my screen, but the there we are. Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we put our responses in this table. So we had a focus group, which was. Can everyone hear me very well? Sorry, I'm not sure if this microphone is very loud.
I think there's a few people that have got connection problems today, Hartpole, so maybe not everybody, but we can hear you.
No problem. So yeah, so we had a focus group, which was after sort of a quiz that was being hosted, and that we tagged on at the end and asked these questions. So I've just sort of listed them in this table. So mobility, people being access to transport was important for us to getting older. The health and well-being, the sanity, so the mental health. And exercise was another important one, having also hobbies to do this, and also having like a support network, so having friends and family around them. And so how are people able to achieve this? So they need good links with public transport, medication deliveries from the local pharmacies, and we've got a good local group called the Crossgates Good Neighbour Scheme, and they help reduce loneliness, reduce like isolation, just some more support people's independence, and by volunteers. Being able to walk is very useful because a lot of things in Crossgates are close together. And also what's good about being good about living in Crossgates is we've got the Newsom Centre, which is, well, before COVID, it would hold Tai Chi and computer classes. And also we've got a good train link into Leeds. And things that can be improved in Crossgates. One identification there was the Spring Shopping Centre. It's a new centre that's sort of been built slightly outside Crossgates area, but people said that they would like best transport to there. The shopping centre's not got as good shops as it used to be. I think the M&S sort of disappeared, so people would like more food shopping choices in Crossgates. Probably more exercise classes as well that are more age appropriate for the elder population. And also that the Johnson Meeting Centre, which is in Crossgates, they're less likely to use that because the classes aren't suited to them, so they're having to travel to Wetherby instead. That's the majority of our feedback.
Great, thanks, Harpal. Was there anybody else from the Crossgates area that was part of that chat that wants to add anything in, or any other reflections? David?
Yeah, just a comment from my own personal experience. In the past few weeks, I got my senior bus pass out again, and I've been travelling around Leeds on the buses again. I'm absolutely astonished by how few people are still travelling on the buses. You can get on a double decker at any time of the day, and there's only 4 or 5 people on it. I think it shows that many people are still too cautious to go out of their houses. And that's going to have a big effect on their mental health before too long. And they need to be able to get out to socialise and so on. So there is a messaging problem here, I think, because shielding is finished now.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I think that's a really important reflection. I've also seen plenty of kind of empty or empty-ish buses circulating, but as was picked up in the earlier comments from Armley, I think we have got that real confidence issue for a lot of older people now that feel like even though shielding has finished, that actually they don't feel safe or confident going out. And you obviously see the reports in the media of very packed places and people not social distancing. And I imagine that doesn't help if you've been very much locked away for weeks and weeks and a feeling like you've got that lack of confidence. But yeah, I think so important, isn't it, to think about where we're at now and what people are going through and what that might mean for some of the work that we're doing right now as a group and how we do that. Karen, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, I was just thinking the other thing as well. I mean, I'm 60. I'm not probably in that age group, but it's the unpredictability. You don't know what to expect anywhere. Everything's different. So, like David was saying on the buses, I think people are worried about not knowing what to expect and how things work. And everywhere you go, it seems to be a different thing. So, I don't know, a restaurant or a pub, they all do a different process. So it's very difficult to keep on top of all of that. And when and that just adds to the anxiety, doesn't it? I mean, there might not be a lot of COVID around, but that's anxiety, that's making people anxious. And then not knowing how to, what to do when you go somewhere and how things are going to be. And like you say, the stuff in the media around people not social distancing, I think all that stuff adds to that anxiety, doesn't it? And you're not sure what to expect. So, yeah, I think it's a difficult thing, like David said, it's something about messaging, isn't it? And some of the bus services are mentioned at Crossgates. It's not easy to get to the Springs, is it, from Central Crossgates? I don't think there's a bus that goes directly there. And that's a local area that might be somewhere that people would feel safe to go to.
To be fair, Karen, there is a bus that goes there, but it's not very frequent.
Right, okay.
Okay, so thanks for that. Thanks, Harpal, as well, for sharing the feedback from the quiz. I love that you guys kind of pinned it to the end of a quiz as well to have that conversation. That's a really great way of kind of doing a bit of work, getting views from some of the older people in your area. So I'm going to draw this one to a close now because I'm aware that we have got a really packed agenda today, but thanks everybody that's taken a part in that in the last few weeks. I think that, it has given a real picture of what's going on there. It's maybe thrown up a few surprises, but definitely given us plenty to think about. Hopefully you did all find it helpful and interesting to hear from each other as well and get that picture of what it's like in the different local care partnerships and those similarities and differences. I'm going to pass back to Graham now for him to take us through the next part of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Kim. That was absolutely fantastic. That's feedback was amazing. And I guess building on that, so continually building on that. So today's session is centered around assets and what is strong in our local care partnerships, and we're going to continue building on that throughout the morning. And in Leeds, tackling loneliness, particularly for older people, has been a priority for many years. And this focus on loneliness has led to the creation of a network of community-based, locally led organisations called Neighbourhood Networks. And there are some of you from those networks on the call, which is brilliant. And they're working to help older people live independently and proactively within their local communities. Now, what I want to show you is while the council was kind of developing and expanding these networks, it came across a concept of asset-based community development, or ABCD, and it refers to a type of community development work based on professors Jodie Kretzmann and John McKnight, and I think some of us will be more familiar with this work in Leeds, but ABC challenges the kind of the traditional deficit-based approach that tries to solve kind of urban and rural development problems by focusing on the needs and deficiencies of individuals, neighbourhoods, towns, villages, etc. But what ABCD demonstrates is that local assets, people, physical assets, etc., and individual strengths are key to ensure sustainable community development, and that people have a life of their own choosing. So again, there's a guy that you can look up called Cormac Russell. He's well known in Leeds around this ABCD work, and also a guy called Mick Ward, who's now retired from Leeds City Council. But kind of together in that team, they decided to sort of rejig the Neighbourhood Networks project to test out ABCD as a way of supporting older people in Leeds to be more connected to where they live. So I've got I'm just thinking I've got a video which is about 8 minutes long, which will learn about ABCD in Leeds, and then we'll go into a session from Hannah Davis from Healthwatch about co-design. So I'm just going to play this video, if I can get the tech to work again. So you've got 8 minutes.
Thank you. Today, I want to present a very simple idea. And the idea is this. If we want to help people in a way that does no harm to them and their capacities and their communities, then the best place to start is with what is strong within them and within their communities, and not with what's wrong.
ABCD empowers the community. It gives them a voice. It's not about anybody parachuting in.
It's empowering them to do what is important to them.
Local knowledge, local skills, local assets.
Asset-based community development, which instead of focusing on what's wrong with communities or what's wrong with individuals, really concentrates on what communities have got, the assets within those communities, and to use those assets to the best possible advantage to support each other.
ABCD empowers the community so that when other organisations come in and say, this is what we think you need, they can actually say, no, this is not what we need. This is what we're doing, and this is what we need you to support us to do in order for our community to grow and flourish. I would happily recommend the ABCD approach, because what it does, it brings a sustainability to work that's actually happening, but it also brings a confidence within that community.
Seriously wonderful.
They really enjoy it. They really like
And the most attractive thing about ABCD, it's not about anybody parachuting in. It's about saying, you know, we are the people of Gipton, these are our skills, this is our time, and these are our people. And with a little bit of resources, we can help ourselves and build. So, for example, Val's group, the fish and chip group, set that up. We give them £200 to buy pans and different things for their community room. The outcome of that sort of 18 months is they develop lots of other groups that people want to be involved in. They've got an art and crafts group, the bingo evening, the fish and chips once a month, and they now meet every Monday. It's cost effective. £100 to set up a club that's going 2 years later is a lot cheaper than sending a member of staff to go do a coffee morning somewhere once a month. You only have to fund it once, and it's self-funded, because it's not mine, it's theirs.
I moved into Pembroke Towers about 11 years ago. And realised that you never saw anybody, everybody was in the flats. So there's a community room downstairs. And I thought, why don't we get people to come down there and maybe just have a coffee afternoon or something, try and get some of the elderly out. I thought there's a lot of lonely people in here. So we decided to, why don't we try and set some up just on a Monday afternoon? You know, we were fit and able, but a lot of them weren't. Try and get them out, have a cup of coffee or whatever. But from there, we've gone out on days out, and then Christmas put a meal on, gone across to Harrogate, taken them over there and had a good meal out.
I've been through some difficult times myself. Things went quite bad. I needed a lot of help from different organisations within Leeds, and it helped me knowing that I could overcome this, that I could help other people to overcome their problems. And we decided to maybe make our own group, and people are coming and we're sort of thriving off of it. We're building up from what we once had to what we've got now. We've got people coming from places like the doctors and school, and people from all over Otley are coming.
So using the ABCD method within my work, and I found that empowering people, you get a lot more out of the work that you do. People have got a bit more invested into it because it's what they want to do rather than someone coming in and saying you have to do this. It's up to them. It's empowering them to do what is important to them.
The LS14 Trust is a community development project that was set up by local people and basically holds a space in this amazing community for local people to come together to make change. Not for other people from outside to come in and say we've got the answers, but to use the resources and the skills of this community to make it the place that we want it to be. And the key thing is we're not a service provider, so we're not trying to do things to people in this community. We're trying to hold a space of potential to allow any idea, I want to change this community, and we will support people in that. And I think that's quite a unique approach.
I first started coming to LS14 for therapy. Since I've had therapy, I have been able to move on by doing different things in LS14. The tombola was my idea, and I've had so much out of therapy. I felt that I would like to give something back, and the money that is raised is going to go to LS14.
We helped set up a secret food and boot market that was run by local volunteers in an asset base with. We would have more pushed back on them to sort of develop the market themselves and take ownership of it.
Came through the doctors because I was new to the area. I suffer with depression and anxiety. I was made to feel really welcome, so liked it, so I stayed. It helps me, it gets me out of the house and feels like I'm giving something back to the community.
So it wasn't about, here's the funding, let's do something in this area. It came very much out of a bunch of people saying, we have got the skills to make this change. But yes, local knowledge, local skills, local asset.
In setting up and developing ABCD, we really want to continue to focus on 4 layers at the same time. Firstly, what you might call the ABCD model. Funding a community organiser who goes out in that neighbourhood, finding those community connectors, using a bit of small smacks funding to support groups and mapping the assets in that community. But we also want those community organisations working across the city, working in communities, be that on particular client groups or areas, to start thinking much more in an asset-based way. And we can support them to do that through training, through access to support from other organisations. We have that ask of those big organisations as well to start thinking in an asset-based way.
Focusing on
what's strong
and
not what's wrong.
Focusing on what's strong and not what's wrong.
He's gone now.
Right. Well, some pretty powerful messages there. I think you'll all agree. And certainly my take home there is it's not mine, it's theirs. And the three things around local knowledge, local skills, and local assets. So again, hopefully we can bring that into our local care partnership population health management world. So without further ado, I'm now going to go back to some slides, and I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Hannah Davis from Healthwatch Leeds. And I'm going to be the slide man, so she's going to say next slide please. So she's pretending to be Boris Johnson. Other politicians are available. So over to Hannah.
Thanks, Graham, and hello all. As Graham said, my name's Hannah Davis, and I'm Chief Exec at Healthwatch Leeds. For those who don't know about Healthwatch, actually, for the people that I can see on the screen, quick show of hands for people that have heard of Healthwatch. It's always good to know if people have heard of us or not. Oh, that's a good show of hands, brilliant. For those that don't know Healthwatch, there's a Healthwatch in every local area, and it's our role to listen to the experiences of people around health and care. So we're out there listening to people's experience all the time, and what we do is then feed it through to decision makers. So we have a place on things like the Health and Wellbeing Board, Mental Health Partnership Board, all the senior strategic boards who are planning our health and care services in Leeds. So that's the role of Healthwatch. Many thanks to Graham and to Kim for inviting me to be part of today. For those that know me, I'm sort of really excited by local care partnerships and all the work that you're doing. It feels, in terms of our ambition to improve the health of the poorest the fastest, it feels like local care partnerships are one of the key ways that we're going to do it as a city, so really welcome being part of that. And this is part of ongoing discussions and that we're having with Kim and the team about how do we really put people's voices at the centre of health and care decision making. So I don't know how long I've got, but I'll just keep going, Graham, and let me know if you need me to bring it to a close. Over the next sort of 5-10 minutes, and we're talking about just letting you know what's happening at a citywide level about people's voices into health and care decision making. Sort of why it's important, but actually I sort of feel like I don't need to do that bit, because the conversation that you had right at the start, where you were feeding back about your own engagement out there listening to people, feels like everybody understands the importance of this agenda. That without people's insight, we cannot make informed decision making. But I will just run over some slides there. Some principles of good engagement that we've developed with the People's Voices group, and I'll just tell you a bit about that. And then any opportunities for questions and answers. And then I think there's a sort of a breakout group with a question that we'd like to pose as well. So next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Just to, in terms of the work that we're doing from a Healthwatch perspective, and with our other health and care partners, at a citywide level, as you'll know, that our ambition is that Leeds will be a healthy and caring city for all ages, where people who are the poorest improve their health the fastest. Well, we believe that if you don't have people's voices at the centre of that, then we won't be able to achieve that ambition. And we developed this little logo to the side of the slide, if you can see that there. So we actually think that all health and care decision making should involve people. We should start with understanding the lives of people and the people that leading, and the questions that you're asking out around what makes a good life in Leeds, in your local areas, for older people is essentially that. You've got that understanding around what does make a good life to the older people that you're working with. Design with, so that's our mantra is that all services should be designed with those people that will be using those services, and we don't call them patients in our world, we call them people, not least because there's lots of terminology about patients, service users, but also we think there's a power dynamic when we call people patients as well, so that's why we use the term people. We think we should be communicating with people effectively, and we've already heard some things around how important it is that we communicate with people, not to people. Working with people, so that picks up the asset-based, or some of that picks up the asset-based video that we've just watched, that actually this isn't about doing things to people, but actually with people and delivered in some cases by people. And the last bit is about evaluate with people, and we think that's really important. Often we sit in meetings, and I'm sure we all do, where we talk about levels of, we talk about activity. We say that we've set up a service, or we say that we've got, we list our activities, rather than thinking how is that impacting on the people that receive those services. So that's the sort of model that we're encouraging all levels of health and care decision making to adopt within Leeds. I'm chair of a group called the People's Voices group in Leeds, and that brings together all the people in health and care organisations, the citywide health and care organisations like the hospital, Leeds Community Healthcare, Mental Health Trust, the council, the third sector, to come together to really think about this issue and really work together as one health and care listening team in Leeds around the importance of listening to people's voices within decision making. And we've developed a number of things over the past couple of years, which you might have heard of, some of them and might not have. One of them was the Big Leeds Chat, and Neil mentioned that before, but that was a way that we wanted to challenge the city and say, you know what, most people in Leeds think that health and care services work together anyway. They don't understand that there's lots of different organisations that deliver lots of different services. But we want to go out there and listen to what's important to people. So not tell people not start with a conversation as this is how we want health and care to be, but really go with open conversations around what's important to you. Very much similar to the conversations that you've had feeding back through your homework at the beginning of the session. The other big difference with that sort of new way of listening was we were really keen that we didn't want to hear and not to be rude, but the usual suspects. In lots of traditional engaged ways we listen to people, we get the same people who attend and give their own free time, which is brilliant. But actually we wanted to hear different voices. We wanted to particularly hear that voice of inequalities. And the other key bit of that is that we wanted to take decision makers with us. So sometimes engagement gets done by engagement professionals and it gets reported back as a report. But we didn't want that. We wanted frontline decision makers to hear people's experiences, because that's when we think that people get it and people understand exactly what's important to them and what could support people to live better lives. Just to highlight, there's also a Leeds co-production network in the city, which is led by Touchstone, which is a third sector organisation in the city. We're also keen as a People's Voices group to become a hub of all the intelligence that people are telling us, the feedback. So I was scribbling away the information that you were sharing at the beginning of the meeting, and it would be great to talk with you, Kim, and you as partners of the local care partnerships about how we can develop that ongoing feedback mechanism. Really make sure that all our decisions that we're making across health and care are informed by local intelligence and by what local people are saying. The How Does It Feel For Me project, that was the Joyce video that you saw at the start. So that was something that we developed out of the CQC system-wide review, which happened a couple of years ago, when the CQC came to Leeds and they said, how does it feel to be an older person moving in and out of health and care services? And we realised as a city that we couldn't say that. We didn't know what that felt like. And that's what the videos, or the videos are part of a programme to really understand that. But what the videos have done, and we play those at things like the Health and Wellbeing Board and the Partnership Executive Group, which is the exec group that sits under the Health and Wellbeing Board, it just changes the conversation. So instead of talking remotely about services and plans and strategies, it roots all the decisions around people, which is what we wanted. And I suppose lastly, on the People's Voices group, about our role at the moment is, as I've mentioned, we're very keen to support you in your roles within local care partnerships. It's so exciting, the work that you're doing at local care partnerships, and we really want to support you to hear those local voices and make sure that those local voices are at the centre of your health and care decision making across all your local areas. Next slide, please. So that was sort of an overview, a snapshot of what we're doing within People Voice at a citywide level. The other thing that I just want to talk to you about why co-design or code production is so important. As I mentioned before, it feels like I'm sort of talking to people who already get it. But I mean, our fundamental principle is that it doesn't make sense to make decisions without having people inside involved in those decisions. And there's a lot of terminology around this, and I think sometimes we can get hung up on the terminology about it. I quite like this diagram at the side on the left, which sort of describes that people should be involved in the planning of services, the design of services, the evaluations of services and delivery of services, which sort of mirrors the one that we've developed locally. And then this quote on the right as well, co-design is more than a process, it is a social movement focused on challenging and changing inequitable power structures, designing with, not for people. People, families and relationships are the building blocks of all civil society, yet we often fail to listen, see people's capabilities and partner with them to create better futures. As a result, our health and care systems are bursting at their seams with professionals struggling to keep up. So I thought that quote was quite interesting. Next slide, please. This is another one. The idea of co-design is simple. Nobody knows better how public services should be designed than service users and their families, friends, and the communities they live in. Co-design goes way beyond traditional consultation. It's about bringing in the experience of users and their communities to the design of public services. And sometimes on this issue, I sort of reflect. I've also worked in the private sector and as well as the public sector and third sector. But a third sector organisation, a private sector organisation wouldn't launch a service, a product, without having that understanding and insight from people, their consumers or their patients, their service users. So I think the principle stands firm for us in health and care as well. And then the next slide. Thank you. I just wanted to put this up as well because I think there's something here around, hopefully people understand it, and it really feels that you as a group absolutely understand the importance of doing all our work with local people. But I think the NHS England are understanding that more and more as well. So I think within Leeds we have strong aspirations, but the guidance that came out of the NHS last week highlights the fact that we need to work inclusively with those with the greatest need, asking us to work collaboratively with local communities and partners to address health inequalities. So it's quite interesting to see at a national level the ambition that we've got within Leeds to improve the health of the poorest fastest, and to hear the voice of inequalities is sort of coming through national policy as well. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, working with Kim and her team, we really want to support you as local care partnerships to think about how to hear local people's voices. But already in the presentation that, your feedback session this morning, you were describing some of these ways. So whether it's a survey, a focus group after a quiz, which is absolutely inspired, just going out and talking to people. These are the sorts of mechanisms that are out there and are available. We're going to develop, this is not a finished menu of options. This is something that we're developing at the moment. So we're keen to work with you to offer any ways that we can support you to understand the different mechanisms of getting out there and listening to people. But from what I've heard this morning, it already sounds like you're well on the way and open to that approach to doing it, which is brilliant. Next slide, please. As a People's Voices group, we're keen to ensure that as a city we listen and engage with people with shared principles. We do that with shared principles, and these are just some of the ones that we've got here. To do it with integrity, this shouldn't be a tick box exercise. What we really want are active citizens in Leeds. We want people to feel that when they give their feedback, when they give their input, when they start to get involved in these co-designs, is that we're doing it with integrity, and that we're listening, and that we're acting on what people tell us. We've put here just acknowledge the power dynamics as well. And I think there is I don't think that's anything I need to go into. Accessibility in all forms is a must, and I just minded what Joyce said right at the beginning in terms of language and jargon. So important in the way that we communicate with people, and then that also can create power imbalances within this way, because people just don't know what we're talking about. I recently had I've been getting a few text messages from my GP during COVID, and the word triage keeps coming up. Well, most people don't know what triage is. So I think there's in all our engagement, in all the ways that we're talking with people, we just need to make it as accessible as possible. And I often think, would my mum understand this? And if she doesn't, then I'm not communicating in the right way. And the second, the last points there are things I've already mentioned, but the importance of knowing that people feel that their input, their contribution is being heard and acted on, and sort of feeding that back. So there's what we want to, what we'd love to see and support all partners in Leeds to be doing are principles of good engagement, because what we often hear in the engagement word is people have told their stories many times and nothing's happened, or they didn't hear back about what happened about it. And so if you do that too many times, people don't want to share their feedback. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary really around sort of saying, don't get stuck on terminology. And this is just my own personal perspective, but sometimes I've been to many things where people talk about co-production and co-design and get people can be very fixated on definitions. I just think we just need to be out there listening to people and doing it in a way that has integrity. But the first thing is just to get out there and listen to people. A good way of doing it is start with getting to know your local community, and third sector partners are obviously key partners of that. And I'm sure some of the listening that you did at the beginning around older people, you were linking in with third sector partners to do that. But it was great also to hear that people were just getting out there and joining groups and being part of groups, and that's brilliant as well. I think what we're talking about here involves us all to actually sit back and be prepared to listen and learn. It's not just about listening, it's about learning and developing our own thinking and approaches. And that takes, that takes a really willing approach to think actually we might not have got all the right answers. And actually people within communities might have got some of the answers, and maybe some of the answers, some of the solutions that we've been doing for a long time aren't the right things. And how prepared are we to listen and change? Linked to that is around the art of the possible. And, in health and care transformation, we always say that, this is an opportunity to really do things different, to meet people's needs and to meet people's whole person needs around what creates a good life. So I think this is a real opportunity to think really creatively and differently. And then just the last one there is just a sort of a question, I suppose, for all the meetings that we have across health and care sort of transformation is do we have those different voices in the room? Does it feel different? Have we got different people in our room supporting us to make the decisions and our thinking? And I think that was my last slide, Graham. Happy to take any questions, Graham, if there's time, or we can just go into the question into the workshop session, whatever's best for you.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the room. Do people have any questions? Just give it a second. Oh, okay. Doesn't look like anyone's got any questions at the moment, so that's fine. If you do think of something, put it in the chat, and we can come back to that.
I think Kim had her hand up. I think I don't know if she's just been kind, but I think she had her hand up.
I just had a comment, Hannah. I mean, I think brilliant overview, thank you. But I really liked the bit where you're talking about the listen and learn part, but very much what we do with that information, that it's important we're having those conversations. But actually sometimes the tricky bit is, well, what do we do with this? How do we make sure that we keep coming back to what people have said and think, you know, when we're designing this, are we getting it right? So yeah, I think really great overview, but we've got a lot to kind of think about and build on from where we've started.
I think you're right, Kim. I was reflecting on all the you know, the brilliant feedback that everyone said at the beginning, and what really came out to me was the importance of, in terms of older people, was about people's independence. And you know, sort of the questions I was having in mind is, you know, how do we with our health and care services, how are we always minded to keep people independent from an older person's perspective? You know, in all the different ways that we can support people to do that. So yeah, no, I agree. There's one thing to listen, but the other thing is to act and use that insight to change the way that we deliver and design services.
That's great. Thank you very much, and thank you, Hannah, for taking the time to come and speak to us. So there is a question which we would like people to have a think about. Group exercise. There we go. So the way that this is going to work is using Teams. There should, if you navigate using the app or probably on the web browser as well, you can see there's a number of breakout rooms. So whichever local care partnership you have aligned yourself with, or if you're not aligned to anyone, just pick a random one and get involved. Just go in, and there should be some meetings that have been activated within those breakout rooms. So you should see a blue bar. So say you're a Wetherby person, go in, click on breakout room 3, Wetherby, and there'll be a blue bar and it says join. Go into that meeting, and there should be some other Wetherby folk in there to discuss this question. Don't hang up this main call. It'll just be in the background on hold. And then when you've finished in Wetherby or your group, come back to the main room. So the question is, Hannah, do you want to introduce it?
Graham, I'm happy for you to do it.
Okay, fine. Okay, so thinking about an issue that you've been facing for a long time in your local care partnership. So these could be issues around mental health, people from certain communities not coming for annual health checks. Could you consider how you might think about this in a co-designed way with that community? Have a think about what the barriers are and what could help you. So if you've got a tricky problem within your local care partnership, how could you use the community to co-design the way out of it? So we're just, timing is interesting. I think we're still pretty much on track. So I'm going to give it 20 minutes for this session. So if we could be back in the main hall at let's say 10:45. So that's enough time to jump out of this main call into your breakout groups, have some discussions, not expecting a fully formed solution to this at all, just have a discussion. We'll do a little bit of brief feedback. And also now is the time to get some biscuits, tea, coffee, other light refreshments. And we'll see you back in the main room at 10:45. And thank you very much, everybody, so far. See you in a bit.